Okay, Tale of Four Cities. Wow, this is like about 5 years of research in 15 minutes, but we'll get through it. Basically, what we did was to look at what were the light at night implications. I think all the speakers this morning have really said, what is the impact of light at night? And what we did is we went in situ into cities to evaluate what their lighting was and if they were lighting correctly, or if we changed the lighting out, what were the implications on safety and security? Do you want to come up here and sit if you're having trouble hearing? There's a seat right up here. Yeah, come on up. And so what our research questions were, and we went to 4 different cities to look at this, and basically started asking things that that I think that the public would start asking. What kind of light source did they prefer? And that was both spectral distribution, color, all of this. And we looked at the general public. If you had anything to do with lighting, your survey was thrown out. You know, we'd ask, do you sell lighting? Are you a lighting engineer? So they were all thrown out. But here is the big thing. Is there an enhancement if we go with broad spectrum? Now, I want to put a caveat on that. It's not like super blue light. It is if we added more nanometers into the spectrum, would there be a difference right there? And so then we started looking at how far can we drop the lighting levels and still have no effective visibility. So this was like a big deal. And then which lighting is better? And of course, how can we compare these under different roadway conditions? Seattle was our best one because that we did dry and wet conditions, seeing what the difference were. Here are the 4 cities we went to look at. Anchorage was amazing because we kept seeing that the lower we lower the lighting level, the better the response from the public. And we're going, oh. And at that point, we brought in Virginia Tech Transportation Institute, Dr. Ron Gibbons, to help us objectively look at the data. And we actually reran the Anchorage test again and came up with the same results, where everyone says, well, Anchorage is snow and that helps. So we went south to San Diego, no snow down there, repeated the test a little differently. We actually added pedestrians in it, actors and actresses with hard hats. You know, how well can you see things? And that worked out okay. Same trending results as for Anchorage. Then we did the best test of all in San Jose because we were able to do it with no ambient surround light. And we had 1.5 miles of closed roadway, and this was absolutely ideal. Unfortunately, one night it rained, so we had some rain data, and then we went to Seattle for the grandmother of all tests, and this was actually funded by Northwest Energy Efficiency Lab. I mean, this is a $500,000 research just for Seattle alone. And to do it, and we did dry and wet conditions. It's always wet in Seattle, right? Well, our week of research, it was dry, so they had to bring the tanker trucks out to wet the roads. But it worked. I mean, it's, you know, we're there and we're wetting the roads. Here's the subjective evaluation that we had. And this subjective evaluation has now been used probably 1,000 times. We originally used it with an assessment of outdoor lighting in the state of California. And we used retired police officers to go out and assess lighting. It was developed by Dr. Peter Boyce at Lighting Research Center for parking lots, and we adapted it to street lighting with Peter's blessings. So we've used this controlled setting. We get the public together, we put them in a room, we instruct them, and we bring them out and say, look this direction, fill out this survey, and don't talk to anybody. And we did this, and so we would have guides tell them where to stand, all of that, and went through the survey. And we did it in the 4 cities. Here were the actual targets that we put into the road, and this was objective data. In addition to the subjective community data, and these are pedestrians, versus driving in the road, we had to find these targets. And these targets were strategically placed in the road, and then you would get into this car, which was driven by a researcher from Virginia Tech. He would drive 35 miles per hour, which is outside the headlamp range. This is very important. And every time you saw an object, you push a button. It's kind of like, where's Waldo? You push a button, and the car would record your distance from the object, snapped a luminance picture so we knew exactly what the scene was, took illuminance, vertical, horizontal, luminance, the whole shebang, spectral distribution of the whole scene, and we have thousands of pieces of data on this. And so then, and this, it didn't matter if you were a lighting expert. I went through it several times. You don't care what the light is. You're going, where's the object? Where's the object? Oh, I see it. It was like a game. And so anyone could do it. We also made sure that we had complete diversity on the subject evaluation teams. In Seattle, it was great. We actually did it through social media, and we got, and I'll have a slide on that, of how many people we got for it, but we made sure there was a diversity of gender and age in each group. Well, here's what happened in Seattle. Anchorage. Please note that their standard is 400 watt high pressure sodium. I always wonder the psychological effect of overlighting northern cities. When all of us non-northern people move there, we're going, oh, it's winter and we want light, we want light. Anchorage, their lighting levels are at least 3 times greater than the lower 48. And so their street lighting standard is 400 watt high pressure sodium. So with that, we did everything as a percentage of high pressure sodium. This is detection distance study. And we noticed we did do a 250 watt HPS, which is important because that we continued at every single test to make sure we had that. And we looked at different types of LEDs. With these, we're mostly at 4,000 Kelvin LEDs. We did not vary the color temperature. But notice lighting level was 9%, yet we're at 70% of the detection distance in dropping from 400 watt HPS down to a much lower LED. In San Diego, very, very similar results, except we dimmed the lights. We dimmed them 50%. And what's important here, depending on the dim level, we did not see a 50% drop in detection distance. Okay, which you would think, oh, more light, better sight. But again, and I love the national park stuff, that you guys notice that it's logarithmic. The eye is logarithmic, and yet all of our units are linear, and that's the problem with foot candles, is that we need a log scale instead. But so what we found, in all cases, the 250 watt high pressure sodium turned out to be the biggest loser. And I'm going to go back to the other slide and show that. Really a big loser when it comes to detection distance and to compared to the other sources. That was a trend we saw in all the studies. Then San Jose, really an ideal situation. Here we actually varied the color temperature. We want, every time we do a test, we decide to add another variable. Here we varied the color temperature, and we noticed that the low pressure sodium and high pressure sodium had, about 60 meters detection distance. And the 4,000 and 5,000 LED, again, not significantly different, had a higher detection distance, but look at the watts per linear foot. Instead of doing foot candles, we decided for an energy story of what that would be. But then when we dropped only the LEDs down 50%, that we have an equivalent detection distance in the LPS and HPS at a fraction of the foot candles, or about 1/4 of the watts per linear foot. So again, we're going, lighting level doesn't necessarily mean better detection at all. that there's something to do with the spectral distribution. So here's the Seattle study. I got to put a plug in for NIA because they paid for it all, which is very generous. And this was an outstanding study. We decided to, again, cut down the variables. In the other studies, we used different manufacturers, and so therefore the glare was different depending on the equipment. This time we selected one manufacturer to put in 3 different color temperatures. We also did kind of a hokey asymmetric luminaire. We basically, you know how you have light go out in 2 directions? We took one of the directions and just turned it the same direction. It was a mock-up kind of asymmetric, nothing designed at all. But just to kind of test, if you did kind of a pro beam or an extension of headlights, what would that do? Would you see different data? And that asymmetric was at a 4100K. So we looked at those things. And then we kept going, okay, we've got 100%, 50%. Where are we going to hit the cliff of this visibility plateau? What if we drop it off to 25%? And I'll bet that detection distance goes way down. So that was our guess at doing that. And again, dry and wet conditions. We had a great setup, but this was an urban setting, so we had ambient light. And this is very important when we look at the results. We kind of distributed everything in different blocks here. And we got 332 people to show up for this. There were 6 different groups. 3 the night of the dry conditions, 3 of the wet conditions. We had 100% light level, 50%, 25%. How do we get someone to show up at 11 o'clock to take a survey? We paid them. Okay? We gave everyone a $40 American Express gift card. So it turned to be a fundraiser for churches and everything. People, their congregations would come out. And again, through social media, we organized it so we had a mixture of gender and age in each group. And they all showed up, and they were absolutely amazing in how dedicated they were to it. So subjectively, notice in the different lighting levels, each of these represent different lighting levels, no significant difference in is the lighting comfortable. But one group didn't see the lights drop. They went out and they were 25%. They're looking at it, yeah, it's comfortable, it's good. So the whole thing that the public won't want you to dim your lights, they don't even know you've done it. And even under wet conditions, no difference at all. And again, this is this linear to log scale of our eyes. You know, we're going, wow, there's something there. Lighting is safe. Oh boy, this is a hot topic. Again, no significant difference. In fact, at some points, even under wet condition, like the asymmetric, they thought the lower lighting level was safer than the higher lighting level. So there's something there telling us. Color temperature, subjective. This was fascinating. In San Diego and San Jose, definitely the preferred color temperature was 3,500K. In Seattle, it was 4,000, and this is subject evaluations. But in Seattle, there was a distinct difference between gender. Women liked warmer color, and men liked the cooler color. And it was significant. Now, what I've heard, which is really interesting, is that color is, according to your X chromosome, that's why more men, because you only have one X, sorry guys, have a deficiency, a lot of color blindness, or as we call it, chroma challenged, value enhanced, but that maybe because women have 2 X chromosomes that our color is more sensitive of what we prefer or not. I don't know. I've talked to Dr. Alan Lewis about it. He thinks there's a lot to go with that. Yes, CCT. In other words, color temperature.
Okay, so the warmer color temperature would be 4,100K?
No, 3,500K. Thank you. The warmer color temperature is 3,500K, and the cooler is a 4100K. So we did see a difference. I don't know whether this is cultural or lack of sun or just too much rain in Seattle. Backlight at 25% of the lighting level, here is where we saw some differences. They didn't like the sidewalks as you're walking the sidewalks. It may have to do with the type of distribution we did. You know, we keep saying backlight shielding's great, all of this, but if your street light's not designed to light the sidewalk, we've got a problem here. And of course, this street light had very little light on the sidewalk. So we started to see a drop off of just satisfaction. And of course, further, we're going, well, maybe we should design street light to light sidewalks differently than the streets. We got two drivers, we can do a lot of things there, maybe not dim the lights, whatever. And I'm running out of time, I can see that. Objective valuation, this is piling all the data together. This is wet nights, dry nights, 100%, 50%, whatever. And we wanted to see of which had the best. Notice the 4100K came out on top. And then we actually put a safe stopping distance. Notice that the 250 watt barely makes it, the high pressure sodium. So there's something there. There's color contrast that we haven't really begun to delve into on what it is. Specific color analysis, I've got so much data on this. We've got like a 200-page report on this whole thing, but I just wanted to show you that the 250 watt, there are some colors that you just cannot see as far as in detection and to look at it. And so we're beginning to think, what is the right mix of color that we could do to look at most things? Dimming did not significantly affect objective detective distance, and that's huge. Glare. Glare may have a lot to do with it. The asymmetric had the lowest glare. Here is a key thing. Uniformity did not improve detection. In fact, it was the opposite. Our worst uniform roadway had the best detection. So we may be putting streets, poles too close together. We have brought this to the IS Roadway Lighting Committee and said the one situation that met the criteria, which is the 400 watt hyper sodium, had some of the worst detection. It was the worst uniformity that had the best detection. And this makes sense because you need different backgrounds to see contrast. So we're definitely at a contrast based. Looking at the different contrast, this is, I'm going to skip to this slide. This is at 100% lighting level. Basically, the streets are overlit. All of our objects have negative contrast. As we decrease the lighting level, this is at 25%, we start going to positive contrast. So our discussion is, so you're driving your car, everything's in silhouette, you come into headlight beam, switches to positive contrast, and at that point, the objects disappear. We need lighting systems that keep positive contrast all the time. And so we're developing into this. So here's kind of the results. Basically saw adaptive lighting, which is dimming the light, does not appear to change contrast of the objects. Basically what is happening, the lower the lighting level, the better the visibility. But we need spectral distribution to be able to see colors. What is that? It's definitely linked to contrast, and uniformity has been touted as being so good. We think, as standards bodies, we need to change our entire algorithm to go with contrast-based criteria. Totally. I've got a dream, and you're going to have to give me 2 more seconds for my dream. I think that with this data, we're lighting our roadways completely wrong. We should quit emphasizing horizontal whatever, whether it's illuminance or luminance. We need to start looking at how do we light vertical objects on the road. In fact, the darker the roads, the better, because the objects will pop out as long as we've got a lighting system that can pick that up. Maybe it's something in the curbing that kind of shoots light across the road. Maybe it's OLEDs. Maybe it's striping. Maybe it's something activated. What if our cell phones could activate lighting? As we walk down the street, you know, I want this app for this sidewalk, and the lights are going to respond. There's so much we can do in spectral distribution. Let's start tuning our lights to the curfews, to the spectrum, depending on what it is. Maybe a little bit more blue content in rush hour, and then we drop off and tune the lights down to different spectral distributions. So with that, I'm out of time. So thank you.